Sanbanan Dumlang, hello, it's Simply Spizzer here, and welcome back to the podcast Simply Do the Work after weeks, if not months, of exile, of it just being crickets. And I do apologize for that, but before we get into today, let me just wish you a happy new year. Compliments to the new year. We finally made it to 2021 and past the god awful year that was 2020. And so I recognize that it's been a while since I put out any podcasts or videos. Like it's been 45 days since my last YouTube video, and I don't even know how long since I put out a podcast. And the funny thing is, it's not like I didn't have content ready. Like I literally have video footage and even podcast episodes that I recorded, but when it just came time to editing, either I start the editing process or just give up halfway, or I just felt so uninspired to edit. And I think also part of me just realized I need to just take a break from creating content, because I know I just felt like I just had a lot of internal stuff that I needed to work on, and I'm still gonna be working on that going into the new year. But I thought it would be great, for this episode, just to sort of do a bit of a reflection on the year that was 2020, and also just sort of share with you guys some of my hopes and dreams for 2021. And so, this time last year, if you told me things would be looking the way they're looking now, I don't think anyone could have predicted, even though some people have, but I don't think anyone could have imagined just how bad this year could have gone. I think for me personally, the first half of the year, obviously, right? There was lockdown and everything else happening in the world. But for me personally, the first half of 2020 wasn't that bad. It's really in the second half where things really, it's that's when the shit show started for me, because I think by then it was more than 4 months in lockdown. I think that's when for me the fatigue, the COVID fatigue started hitting, and even just the fact that I had been at home for so long, that's when I started noticing triggers coming up. That's when even just my mental health started going on a downward spin. I had my whole issue with university and them not starting with online learning with other people, right? And then we had our online learning, we started in was it August or September? And so it was just the last couple of months have been intense. And I don't know, I feel I could just go on and on, but what I did this morning, I had a bit of, I sat down and I reflected, and I guess this is an exercise that we can all do for ourselves. Just ask myself 4 simple questions, right? First question was, what went well this year? And then the second question I asked myself was, what didn't go well this year? The third question was, what did I learn this year? And lastly, what do I want for the next year? And so I thought maybe it'd be just cute if I just share with you guys some of the things I wrote, and maybe this will inspire you to do this exercise for yourself. And even I think also, sometimes I think another good thing that comes with just sitting down reflecting is because if you just try to think about the year just quickly, it sometimes can seem like a blur, or I feel sometimes we can focus so much on the most recent things and we forget what actually happened early in the year. I even actually, when I'm done recording this, I want to sit down and just page through my journal, because it's just there's something, I did a quick skim. There's something just whoa, did this happen this year? Are you sure? It feels like it happened years ago. But anyways, let's get into the reflection. So what went well this year? Well, my YouTube channel surpassed 400 subscribers, and I started this podcast. I do recognize that this podcast wasn't going to start the way it started if it wasn't for the spare time I had in lockdown with no classes. This content I was creating was one of the main things keeping me sane during the time when I didn't have classes, because it was kind of that was my purpose, right? I remember I had a whole schedule where it would be every other day I'd either be filming or editing a video or podcast. And so I do recognize how this is a great achievement for me, and I'm looking forward to see, how it's gonna happen for 2021. But also involved this year for me is I was in good health for most of the year. Now, keyword most of the year, because for most of December, I've actually been feeling kind of sick, and maybe we can talk a bit about that. I had a little bit of like a COVID scare, if you will, because I was feeling fatigue, I was feeling fever, I was having headaches and muscle aches, and I was told, like when I remember I'd mentioned that my symptoms in passing. One of my friends was like, "You shouldn't take these symptoms lightly because that is how some people are presenting, and they test positive for COVID." And at that time, I remember I had to go to campus like the next day, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, what if I do have it? Like, I don't want to infect people. And even there was the whole question, okay, if I do have it, where could I have gotten it? And I thought, okay, campus, unlikely, only because like I don't spend that much time on campus, and when I am on campus, like I'd be wearing a mask and sanitizer. But like it's a possibility because I had been on campus. But then also there was another certain establishment I went to with a friend, and let's just say that the social distancing and the masking thing wasn't really enforced that much. It was very much optional, and the things with like masks and all of that, it works best if everyone is wearing a mask. And so I thought, oh, did I get it from that establishment? And it was so fun because even like my friend who went out with me, they also were like worried that they also like saying I've been feeling under the weather a bit. So they kind of like we had like this little joke that okay, I'm basically like their test because like I ended up just contacting a doctor to get tested, and that whole experience was kind of upsetting because I just felt like there was little to no support from the university. I really felt like I was just like on my own. If it wasn't for like my friends who were, giving me advice and supporting me and helping me. Because I remember I didn't go to campus that Tuesday, and the following Tuesday we had to be assessed on what was taught that Tuesday. So I basically had to self study for my final assessment for 2020, and that was just like nerve wracking. But like looking back, I think I did well on the assessment. And by then I had gotten my results. My results came back negative. So I was like, woo, thank the good Lord. But then, like, a day or two before Christmas, because yeah, that whole situation happened around the 16th of December. Like, I can't remember the exact date, but yeah, like, I first started experiencing symptoms on the 9th of December. And so at about the 16th of December, that's around about that time, that's when I got my results, just to like paint you guys a clear picture of the timeline. And then like a day or two before Christmas, I started feeling sick again. And it's almost like I was feeling even worse than I did before because now I was having sore throat and I was starting to cough, and we were going to Durban with my family. And so I remember when we were going there, I was wearing a mask like almost the entire time without like in the car I was wearing a mask. Like if I was sitting next to someone I'd wear a mask and just all of that. And right now, I mean, today's the 31st of December. I'm still feeling a little bit iffy. And so, like, I'm just grateful that for most of the year I've been in good health. And, like, even now, like, I'm still okay. Like, I know of people who tested positive for the virus and they even had to get hospitalized or their symptoms didn't get better and they had to spend Christmas time alone, away from their families. And so I shouldn't take for granted the position I'm at. But I'm hoping and praying that by the time I have to go back to campus, my health is better. And what also went well is that I began learning a new language. If you guys watched my earlier lockdown vlogs, I shared how I was teaching myself Thai, and even though I did sort of slack towards the end of the year, like I didn't follow through on it, I'm quite impressed with how much I retain because one of the reasons why I learned Thai is because I started watching like Thai series. And notice like now sometimes when I'm watching my Thai series, I can literally like when you're watching something and then you read the subtitles and like but what they said isn't what was like they like you can I can see when they made mistakes in the translations because I guess some of like my Thai vocabulary has retained. And so for 2021, one of my hopes is to pick that up again because it's kind of fun. Like learning a new language is quite fun, and it does have some cognitive benefits. Like they say, it improves your memory and amongst many things, and helps with studying. And I guess what also went well this year is I've grown in my self awareness and understanding of self. I mean, with all this free time, I was forced to reflect on some things, which I think that's also why I guess at some points I felt like my mental health took a dip because I realized that there were so many things that happened to me that I never processed. It just so like it happened and we moved. I feel like that's the thing. Like life was just happening and we were just moving, but with everything stopping and slowing down, I was forced to really do some internal work and just look at myself. And I guess lastly, something I read about is that I'm continuing my journey of deconstructing and reconstructing my faith. And that can be literally its own podcast episode. So we're not going to go into that. But what didn't go well this year for me? Well, first of all, being in lockdown since March, that wasn't fun. Like, that's like the obvious elephant in the room. Also, just the struggles with my university and starting online learning, that really caused a lot of stress because we were writing tests back to back to back to back to back. And like, even right now, even though we're going to 2021, we're still pushing the 2020 academic year. So that is just a mess. And also, just I found myself just having to listen, or how can I, because like I scribbled this down, so I'm trying to say how can I articulate this, what I wrote here in my journal. Basically, let's just say that I had to listen, or I heard a lot of unaffirming messaging. I heard a lot of toxic and hurtful things from family, and even just I was sent a lot of things that hurt me this year, and just having to deal with that. And even on my birthday, there was some things that were said to me or about me that I didn't really like, and I need to address that. I need to address that with my family. I guess also another thing is that I haven't been able to see most of my friends this year. Even though there were a few people who, we made plans to meet each other, but I couldn't see everybody. I wasn't gonna be seeing anyone not when we're in a whole pandemic, and that's what didn't go well this year. And then what did I learn this year? I wrote like three different things. Firstly, I need to set boundaries with my family and let them know and understand exactly how I feel about religion, sexuality, and gender. This one is very important to me because I also realized that because of the fact that my family and I we haven't had certain conversations, or there are certain boundaries not in place, I think that also was affecting the content I was making. Like I think I talked about this, how it's like I hold myself back. I don't fully give my opinions and stuff. And I think one of the main reasons is because I know my family doesn't agree with certain things, and so I don't want to upset them. But at the same time, it's like now I'm being disingenuous, or no, not disingenuous. I'm doing a disservice to myself and my message, right? But also at the same time, it's like not everyone's gonna agree with you, right? But I think it's important that I have these conversations with my family so that we can be on the same page, and that I can have their support where needs be. Am I making sense? Sorry, like I feel like my voice is a little stuffy and groggy because, like I said, I'm still recovering from an illness of sorts. And then another lesson I learned is that nothing in life is ever certain. The whole world basically stopped, and life as we know it was taken away from us. If I think to the future, a lot of people are saying they want us to go back to the way things were. And I think in many ways things can never go back to the way they were. They just can't. Things we also recognize that the way things were wasn't perfect. The way things were was broken as well. And so I think we need to do better, but also I think a lot of us just physically just can't. Because it's like when I watch videos taken before lockdown, I see people, gathered in huge spaces. Like, how did we used to do? Like, they're just or there's just certain things I think that was just nasty, COVID or not. Like, why would people be standing on top of you, like, at the lines, right? It's like, give me space to breathe, COVID or not. Like, I feel like there's certain practices which we've had to adopt in this new normal. That thing needs to stay. Like, I don't know why people weren't washing their hands and sanitizing their hands, like, before. Like, it just... I digress. And then the last lesson I learned this year, well, not like the last, but like the one I wrote down here, is to make sure not a day passes without doing something I love or that makes me happy. And I've said this a lot, and people usually take it as a joke, but it's like it's especially in the last few months where I was overwhelmed with schoolwork. One of the things that kept me happy, kept me sane, was just looking forward to maybe watching a show at 9 o'clock. No, like, at 9 o'clock, I'll get to watch this show of mine. Like, it's literally, it doesn't even have to be like a big wow moment, but just every day I try to make sure that there's at least one thing, one moment to myself where I like just forget about the stresses and be like, okay, this is me time. I'm gonna do what makes me happy, and that it recharges your soul, it replenishes your soul. And then the final reflection I put here is, what do I want for the next year, 2020? So I just wrote down a few things. First is to be more honest and vulnerable in my content and share more of my experiences to help others learn from it. Like, I feel like there's certain things that I've been through, and looking back, I'm like, no one should have to go through that. And I'd like to share more of those experiences, because it's like, just because I went through it doesn't mean I can't take that horrible or that painful experience and use it for the better to educate others, or even empower others, or let others know that, hey, you're not alone. Like, I've also been there and I made it, because I recognize that also there's just some things that's like, if anyone else had gone through this, I don't know how they could have survived. To us, I myself don't know how I survived it. And also, I want to read more. Like, something that really, I guess you could say, that didn't go well in 2020 is that I stopped reading as much. I still listen to podcasts and I watch videos, so I was still like learning from that source. But like, reading books is something, it's a habit which I built up in 2019, and it just sort of like fell apart in 2020. So 2021, we're going to start reading again. We're also going to start learning Thai again, because I'd love to go to Thailand. Um, and maybe even start learning Korean as well too. Like, I was saying, if only I had stuck to my Thai regimen, I'm sure by now I could have been at a place where I could start adding Korean. But now we need to catch up on the Thai, and then maybe we'll add Korean. Who knows? Maybe I'll do some Thai/Korean tutorials on my channel or something. And lastly, oh well, second last thing I want is to be free from, the traumas that I've experienced, not only in 2020, but just even before that, right? And to also just have better coping strategies in times where I find myself triggered, or when something upsets me, because I realized that in 2020, when something would upset me, I realized it's like each year I realized that, okay, I have terrible coping mechanisms, or I do not know how to address people or address issues. But I feel like now is the time, okay, we're really gonna work on it. We're gonna move past simply being aware of that issue and actually gonna do something about it. And then lastly, I just want mental clarity and peace. And I feel like that one is pretty self explanatory. And that pretty much wraps up today's episode. Hope you enjoyed getting to know a little bit about how this year was for me. I mean, like, if I could just describe how I feel, I just want to say Lowkey F 2020. Like, F this year, F this shit show, because what a mess. What a mess. And I really do hope that 2021 can treat us better. Like, I do know that it's not like as soon as the clock strikes midnight, it's gonna be like, suddenly the world will just magically heal. Like, I do recognize how it's gonna take time, but I'm really hoping that things can get a lot better. I mean, we've got a new strain of COVID, right? And with that is coming a new wave of racism. Because remember when we had the first COVID-19 outbreak, right? It was being labeled the Chinese virus. And I've seen certain publications label this new strain as the South African coronavirus, which, is also like, no, that's racist. But, I've seen the mess of South Africans now being racist to those publications, those Chinese, or it was specifically, it was the Japan Times, yes, the tweet that I saw, split the Japan Times, and people just, and I remember just being like, so y'all want to fight racism with the racism? Mess, and we're just not gonna get into it right now. We're not gonna get into it. Not today. I want to end it on a positive note by just moral of the story, guys. Like, you know what? It's gonna get better. better days are coming. I don't know when, I don't know how, but while we're waiting for the better days, let us make the most of each day. And that might sound cliche, that might sound like, I don't know, like one of those quotes you get on like a sugar packet, but there's some truth to it. There's some truth to it. So thank you so much for listening, and here's to 2021 and f2020. I love you guys so much. Bye guys.